You're listening to the Behind Ears podcast because everybody does Disney differently. The Behind Ears podcast crew would like to thank the following sponsors for their generous support. Hey everybody, it's Mr. Chris, and I got to tell you about Expedition Roasters. Listen, I'm a pretty big coffee drinker, just like a lot of you are, but these people have got coffee right. Their coffees are made from selectively sourced premium and specialty grade Arabica beans. They provide the absolute best flavor and aroma, and select roasts even come directly from a single estate farm for a truly perfect cup that is never bitter. They've got awesome Disney-inspired flavors such as Roundhouse Roast, Route 66, Skipper's Brew, Dark Side Roast, Redhead Rum, and one of my favorites, Bob Slatter's Brew. Listen, if you want to have the taste of Disney in every cup, give them a try today. Expeditionroasters.com, and Behind the Ears podcast listeners gets an extra 20% off your first order by using the coupon code EARS20. That's right, EARS20. And you can find them over at expeditionroasters.com. Brew your happy place. If you have a little one and you're going to Walt Disney World, you're going to need a stroller. I'll tell you what, Kingdom Strollers.com is the place where you want to look into. I'll tell you, I've destroyed my fair share of strollers while at Walt Disney World, and those things are not cheap. But getting something from KingdomStrollers.com, they'll be able to help you pick out the perfect stroller for you. And the nice part is that because they're a Disney preferred provider, they'll be able to drop it off and pick it up right from your Disney resort at no extra charge. So if you don't want to necessarily destroy your stroller in the process and you want to have a great Disney vacation with your little one, contact KingdomStrollers.com and they'll set you right up. That's KingdomStrollers.com. Do you want to save around 40% off Disney's prices for deluxe on-property accommodations? Contact DVC-rental.com. They help out Disney Vacation Club owners rent out points that they're not going to use. These points mean savings for you on your next trip at Walt Disney World, Disneyland, Vero Beach, Florida, and Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. The DVC member books everything in your name, just like any other reservation. And if you ever decide that you want to become a DVC member, you can check out our sister company, BuyAndSellDVC.com. As a licensed realtor, they sell DVC contracts for members at a savings of 30 to 40% off Disney's prices. And if you're looking to sell your contract, BuyAndSellDVC.com has one of the industry's lowest commissions at only 6.5%. Again, that's DVC-rental.com for your rental needs, and BuyAndSellDVC.com to buy or sell into the Disney Vacation Club at a large discount. And make sure you tell them that the Behind Ears podcast crew sent you.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Ears podcast. And boy, does it feel good to give you that intro. I'm Uncle Danny, the man pressing all the buttons, causing all the havoc. That is Mr. Chris. Sir, how you doing on this fine Tuesday evening?
Just when you think you've worked all the kinks out before the show, this stuff happens. It's probably nothing that a good solid reboot wouldn't fix, but let's face it. I've said this before. You've said this before. We're live. We're unscripted. We're unedited. Yeah, that's right. It's called life podcasting at its finest, but that's okay. Dude, how have you been? We've missed you.
I know. I come back, and this is the entrance I get, mixed up. It's craziness. I see how it is. I go away for a couple of weeks, and the house is burning down. No, everything's good. It's a pleasure to be back. Don't get used to it. Happen to be an oddity today, so
that's okay because we've actually got. I know I'm kind of doing the whole spoiler thing about Thursday's show, trying to line up some special guests to possibly talk about your non-favorite topic, and that is movies. And I know you're not as much of a movie buff as I am. However, I love it, and so I
want to throw a coal in the fire. I really am not into Disney music. That's my, I know nothing about
Disney music or Disney movies?
Music.
Okay.
Movies, I thoroughly enjoy movies. I just don't really go see Disney movies. Not that I don't want to. It's not that I don't want to. But if there's an awesome war movie, I go see that first.
A what? War movie?
War. Anything fighting. Like Avengers, I'm always there. I'm all about it.
Okay, and so you're not necessarily into, pardon the expression, a chick flick or anything like that.
No. I mean, to go back to the whole Disney aspect, it's not that they don't look amazing. Cinderella looked amazing. Christopher Robin looked amazing. Lion King looks amazing.
Yeah.
Things always kind of come up, though.
Yeah, I totally get it. But you know what? Tonight we've got something a little bit different. I mean, we've done shows where we've talked a lot about, things that maybe bugged us or special things that have happened. But, the thing of it is, I woke up this morning, which for those that know that I was up really late. I woke up this morning. That's good.
Step one complete.
Step one complete. I filled up this whole thing with, obviously some really good Expedition Roasters coffee. Filled that puppy up. Actually, I filled that up twice today, so I'm going to be, again, wired tonight. And I came home from after a little bit of a meeting, and I said, we need to just be happy tonight. We need to talk about some really cool things, some real magical moments, some happy memories, some really good, positive stories. And so I went out to the community and went out to the Behind Ears Podcast Facebook page, and I basically asked our listeners and viewers to pretty much, share with us some of their, some of their happiest moments. And we got some good responses. But as happenstance as it would be, we're going to have a special guest on with us tonight. No, I know it's not Feature Thursday, and that's okay. But I wanted to bring on somebody whom I've been watching for a little bit now, and she does her show on Monday nights, and she is an author of a series of books called Positively Disney. And they are some pretty awesome stories in there. And I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more of that story here in a minute. But her name is Kimberley. And by all means, I just want to go ahead and I'm going to click this cool button. She's going to come on board here in just a couple seconds. And I am just so excited to have her on because, quite honestly, I thought about doing a really happy feel good type of episode. And she was actually one of the first people I thought of just because of the coolness of her books and so on. So, Kimberley, by all means, hi, how are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me on. It's really good to meet you guys, sort of, face to face here and converse. So, hi there.
A virtual hello.
Yeah.
A virtual hello. Yeah. And actually, in this day and age, if you could at least be able to see somebody, hey, that's basically, most cases a personal introduction.
Yeah.
Kim, why don't you go ahead and first off, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and why don't you tell us a little bit about your claim to fame?
Okay. My little claim to fame. So, I'm actually Canadian and I'm from Alberta, Canada. Moved to the U.S. 7 years ago. We live in the Seattle area with my hubby, our 3 kids, and various critters, and have loved Disney from the very beginning when I watched it in my living room at night. It's The Wonderful World of Disney, in black and white, and have been very blessed to have been visiting Walt Disney World. It was my husband who introduced me to Walt Disney World, Disneyland. I cruised on all 4 ships and visited Disneyland Paris. And funnily enough, my husband has been he's passed by all the Disneys around the world for work, but he's never been able to go in, but he buys me stuff from there. So it's like, I kind of got the best of both worlds sort of right now. But yeah, so what happened is we've had some amazing experiences that actually really changed our life paths, to be honest with you. And I was kind of aware of some other people's experiences that were really life-changing. And some don't have to be life-changing, but they really affected their lives. And I'm like, okay, I got to do something about this. And I wanted to share with people so that I can maybe inspire them somehow. And, in finding out how did these Imagineers, animators, and Disney artists make it, because it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns for them. It was a lot of stuff going on, and just different things like people have healed it. Oh my God. I interviewed the director of Give Kids a World Village, and he was telling me that it was the Disney experience at the village that these gave these kids the will to live. My God, that's powerful stuff. And just, fun things with grandmothers celebrating their 100th birthday at Disneyland, or meeting their princess for the first time at 80 years old, and having these children share in the magic, creating the magic for other children in the parks. It's just all so good. And I get to meet the good people in the world. So I'm very grateful.
That's actually really pretty cool. I mean, with the exception of, your husband traveling to all these different places around the world and accidentally skipping just away from the entrance gate to some awesome parks, but that's an entirely different story.
Yeah.
I've done that too. I came so close to my first trip to Disneyland about 10 years ago when I was traveling out there, and I'm like, unfortunately, I didn't realize how large of a state California was until actually I went there.
Yeah.
San Jose, California, and where Disneyland is, it's
in Anaheim. Yeah.
Yeah, not exactly what you would call a quick trip. Anyway, enough about that. But Kimberly, you've always talked on your shows anything and everything positive, and that's one thing that I think in this day and age we need a little bit of. Some people say, hey, we need a little bit of pixie dust. We need a little bit of, happiness, a little bit of happy thoughts, and so on and so forth. And that's why I really wanted to have you on. Not to mention, I've really enjoyed, your books, and quite honestly, I think more and more we really need to have that sense of positivity in our lives. But as I said, I brought on a few notes from our listeners and viewers, and I'm going to go ahead and throw up. No, I'm not going to throw up. Sorry. Good
thing there's a screen between us, Chris.
I know. I'm going to bring up this thing. We're going to talk about some cool stories. I want to go ahead and throw this out there really quick. This is from Claudia, and she says, here's a real life wonderful memory. As a child, I always dreamed of going to Disney World up until the age of 25. May of 2018 was the first time I ever went with my two daughters and husband during our first night. Went to the Magic Kingdom, and during the fireworks, I cried and bawled like a baby because I could not believe I was here. And all I could do is cry and hold my daughter as my tears filled my face and heart overflowing with love and joy. Now, I see something like that. I have to admit something. The first time I actually arrived on property with my family, I felt like this whole big overwhelming bit where, I guess you could say, a guy would say, basically my eyes started sweating. And mainly because I realized all the hard work it took to get there to do the same things that my father did for me. I kind of felt like Clark Griswold traveling across the country, finally seeing, that big arch where you see Mickey and Minnie and so on. And you're like, oh yes, I made it. So I can understand. I can definitely understand, Claudia, that is just, you do that. And I'll still be honest. I still watch the fireworks with my family, and I still get emotional.
Yeah. I walk through the gate and I still get very overwhelmed and emotional too. My kids kind of look at me and like kind of roll their eyes, but my husband actually, I think, is worse than me now, but it's because it touches our hearts. It's something so good. It's everything that's good in the world, really, to be honest with you. Everybody is acknowledged and welcomed no matter what. And to be acknowledged and welcomed in one place is kind of an incredible thing. Chris, while he's fixing his mic there, I actually got to take my husband to Disneyland for his very first trip last month. And I'll tell you, we had never actually flown away anywhere without our children. We went 4 days because I had some engagements there, and it was so fun. It was like we're dating again. We've been married 25 years, and it was so fun. And it was so interesting because we were going to use our fast pass at, parts of the Caribbean, and there are no fast passes at parts of the Caribbean. We were learning as we were going along. So we really had a good time. It was really fun.
See, even memories like that can make a lot of fun. You can make a lot of fun with those sorts of things. So, Danny, you back with us?
Let's give this another whirl. I was saying, we've raised money for Give Kids the World. That's our main charity. Our really close friends over at Crazy for Disney, they raised money for, the Cancer Society. So I thought this one hit home because it also showed what an impact a show at Disney can do. Wendy says, I've got so many favorite memories, but one of the best was after fighting not one, but 2 different cancers for over 2 years. The first time I saw the cast, I cried, but not until Wishes started. That's when I've really started crying like a baby, just overwhelmed with all the emotions of everything I had just gone through. And, to not only battle that and to beat both of them and make it back into the parks, but the idea of what Wishes stood for, and for the average goer, and maybe the people who look at us a little funny because we love Disney so much, they'll say, that's just the fireworks show. But this is a prime example of what Disney and a so-called fireworks show can do for someone's spirit.
And, the first fireworks show that we got to see while we were at Disney was actually Illuminations. I'm sorry. I take that back. Sorry. I don't know why I said that. It was fantastic. And the fact of the matter is that, it's not just a fireworks show, obviously. It's a real big production. And to experience that with my daughter, sitting beside me and just the look on her face and so on, I thought that was cool. Until I saw the look on my son's face the first time he saw that. And I thought that was cool until this past summer when I got to see both my kids and my daughter's fiance, and just to see him enthralled with like Rivers of Light, for example, or actually Fantasmic as well. It's just, you see those kinds of things, you see the kind of reaction on people's face, and then you're like, why wouldn't people want to experience the emotional release that is some of these different shows and attractions? I mean, look at what Claudia also had to say. Mentioned what she said earlier. It was really emotional because I worked so hard alongside my husband to save and sacrifice to make it possible, and we're going back on our second trip, June of 2019. And the thing of it is that I just think there's something to be said about, it's sometimes it takes a lot of saving and sacrificing and rebudgeting and hoping things don't go wrong so you can enjoy it. But yeah, I think that just makes a total complete difference.
I would like to give my story.
Okay.
So it was a cold December day. No, 2011. My sister and now brother-in-law were able to get married inside Disney, inside Epcot.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
And I was obviously a best man, so I was up top. And then to make the memory even more special, that's not really what I want to come out with, a little better, I would say. We as a family and some extended family stayed for an entire week together in Disney. So we were actually there for part of their honeymoon, for pre-wedding, the wedding. We left, and then they obviously finished out their honeymoon, just the two newlyweds. But I also got to see Disney in a new light, being in, what it's like to wake up at Disney at 4 a.m. That was new to me. Never had to do that. Being on the Magical Express with a bride and a groom all dressed up. That was fun. Being in Epcot before anything opened. I was standing in Morocco in a full tux, and later down the road realized how much I really loved Morocco. So kind of hindsight's 20. That was kind of a cool little thing. But I was standing in Morocco drinking, a screwdriver at 8 o'clock in the morning, waiting for a wedding to start. And then also, not my favorite restaurant, Chris. Do you know what it is?
What's not your favorite restaurant? That would have to be Coral Reef is not your favorite restaurant.
And that would be correct. And that is actually where my sister got married, was underneath, like the big banquet hall down there. So, also seeing Chippendale come in, their finest attire to come say hello. But I would say the best memory from all of that when, we had a reception party at the Grand Floridian at the dock. It was amazing, but I think the best memory was seeing my sister, my mom, and my stepdad come in Cinderella's drawn castle with all the white horses over the bridge, and they stopped right in front of where they were getting married, which was the fountain in France in Epcot. And I mean, I still get goosebumps now. It was honestly my favorite trip. And, I've done a lot of trips. Chris, you've done a lot of trips. But there's always that one trip that always stands out. And maybe one day I can top that trip if I get married or kids. But right now, that's definitely my fondest memory.
Wow. I was very fortunate to hear a lot of different Disney engagements and weddings in and around Disney and on the cruise ship and that, because actually the third book is the romance edition. And the thing that really stood out with a lot of these people like you, Danny, is being in the park when nobody else was in the park, right? You've got it all to yourselves and you're surrounded with your best pals, It's like you can't get any better than that, really.
Yeah, it's a surreal feeling. It really is. Yeah. And it's also an odd feeling when you're walking out of reception and everybody's just waiting online for Soren and you're walking with a bride and everybody's kind of looking at you like, wait, where'd you all just come from? Did I miss something? Yeah. So.
Yeah. Oh, she actually got married in Coral Reef?
Well, no, she got married in front of the fountain at Epcot, but we had the reception in the Coral Reef banquet hall.
I didn't realize it had a banquet hall.
I know, me neither.
It's underneath it.
Oh,
so where you walk in for Nemo Crush Talk.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another door that leads you down, and it's all glass. Now it could have actually been Coral Reef, and they just took all the stuff out of it. But I was told it was the banquet hall of Coral Reef.
That's
because
possible.
I don't think you could move all of that stuff out of Coral Reef. Where would you put it?
No, I think you're right. I mean, because the entrance to Coral Reef is, of course, all the way to the right as you're walking towards the Seas Pavilion. Wow, that's cool. I didn't realize. I know I've heard the story from you a dozen times, but I never realized that's where that she actually had her reception. That's really cool, man.
Did they have? Was it in the banquet hall? Did they have the tanks and that in there?
Oh,
could
yeah.
You see? Oh, you could. Okay.
So originally, my sister ended up getting Chippendale, but what she was supposed to have, but they had a malfunction, they couldn't do it, was supposed to be a scuba diving Mickey Mouse.
Oh, whoa!
And they were going to come down. Supposedly, they moved the rocks around to say the wedding day or whatever they were going to write in the rocks.
Cool.
But I don't know if there was an issue with maybe the guy called out the character called out sick. Maybe Mickey was under the weather. I'm not really sure. But all we know is they couldn't do it, and they sent us Chippendale instead, which Chippendale was great.
Yeah.
And then we got a surprise of Donald Duck and Daisy Duck as well. So that was really cool.
You know what?
They made up for
my
it.
Guy. Donald Duck is my guy. I mean, Mickey will always have a place in my heart, but Donald Duck, I don't know why, he's my guy. All my stuff in my room, like my podcast room, there's a Donald Duck flavor to it. And my husband, I'm easy to buy for. Christmas time, I am the easiest person to buy for.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because I have a neighbor friend of mine that he's a big Donald Duck fan too. In fact, I'll go ahead and just share really quick. He actually texted me. He saw it and he said, "I'm going to go ahead and text Chris because I love to send long messages over text." So he's like, the best time ever was a toss up when he rented DVC points and stayed at Animal Kingdom Lodge with some good friends. Or when we went last year, the last year of the Lights at Hollywood and New York at Christmas time. And he goes, and the going around the world showcase is excellent at Epcot at Christmas time.
Yeah.
And he goes, sorry, no offense about against the holiday visit versus the DVC rental visit. And so, the thing is that I think it kind of goes to show that you go down to Disney to, a certain extent, a number of times. And the fun part about it is that, you can't pick just one. You can't pick just one really cool thing to choose as your favorite, your favorite event at times. Mm. And I fall into that trap because someone asked like one time, what's your favorite between Disneyland and Walt Disney World? I'm like, well, that's like trying to say which one of my kids I love more. Mm. They're both awesome. They both rock, but they're two totally different people. And, the thing is, we have all these different magical moments. And I think that's really what makes it, makes it special. I'm going to throw this up on the screen. This is from our friend Mary. She basically says, one time we were sitting on Main Street waiting for the Boo to You parade, and the balloon vendor went by and saw my special needs daughter, was so mesmerized by the balloons. The young boy next to her got up, and not long afterwards, he brought back my daughter a balloon and bought my daughter a balloon and brought it back to her. It was so sweet. Seriously, it just goes to show that there are just some people that really do reduce world suck and increase awesomeness. Our friend Kevin, he's down there now. He and his wife, Stacy. And I know that they were in line for the bus. I think he was sharing one of the stories over at the WDW community page. And she was wearing a button that says that I'm celebrating being in remission. And the fact is, somebody in line basically said, you know what? I'm going to help you celebrate. Congratulations. Please feel free to get in front of me. Just something as simple as that.
Yeah. Nice.
There are still nice people out there. And especially amidst all these comments all over Facebook, on how, you have the happiest place on earth with the crabbiest people in the world.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're like, no, you just don't hear the stories. That's my take. So,
can I share a story with you about somebody that he's now 4 years in remission, and it just goes to show the strength of the Disney community, because this didn't happen in a park, and he was losing his will to live, to be honest with you, when he was fighting. And his wife saw this, and she reached out to 3 Disney Facebook pages and said, hey, is there any way you guys could send my husband a postcard? His favorite character is Figment, and he's just really having a tough time. You know what happened? They got over 200 things sent to them from as far away as Africa, the cruise, all over the world. And things that you couldn't even get in a park. It was unbelievable, the response. And the fellow, he said, gosh, these people, they actually care. And he said, if they're fighting for me, he goes, I got to fight for me too. And he survived and he pulled through, and it was just phenomenal. He lost, a lot of weight. They had a Disney vacation planned at the end of it, which wasn't even keeping his spirits up. So it's this community of all these thousands of people that came together to help this fellow through his treatment. And, I actually was very privileged. See, as I said, I get to meet all the greatest people in the world. And he ended up actually last Christmas in the hospital just briefly with pneumonia at Walt Disney World. And I'm like, well, we're supposed to say hello in the park. I thought, well, I'm just going to go to the hospital and say hi. And, from his trip that, after his cancer battle, he had this jean jacket where he had all these characters signing, even characters you can't even find to sign. He had them on there. And honestly, he asked me to sign his coat. I just about lost it because I was so shocked that he would. I was just so honored to add to that jacket. But, I just love the people of Disney. And, we're all human beings. So you are going to find those apples that might create some, bad apple kind of karma, right? But you know what? Generally speaking, if you can just kind of push that aside and focus on all the others that are wonderful, it's amazing. It really touched me. It's the people of Disney that's why I do what I do. I love the people of Disney, both the guests and the cast members. They're all creating the magic, really.
Oh, I completely agree. Since we were talking about Disney wedding, I want to just share this. This came from Deanna. When I said what was a very magical moment, a very happy memory, she said, getting engaged at the castle. And so I pry. I said, oh, you gotta give us some details. I mean, seriously, getting engaged at the castle. I mean, that's a pretty big thing. So she goes, yeah, it was a surprise for me for sure. She comes from a very strict family with like no vacationing with a boyfriend was allowed. My parents knew it was my dream to get engaged at the castle, so they allowed it with rules, of course. Haha. Went with my brother and sister-in-law and nephew. All of a sudden, they disappeared, and it was just me, my soon-to-be hubby, looking at the water over the bridge in front of the castle. He got down on one knee and asked, and of course, I said yes. And we were fortunate enough to go back for our honeymoon and manage to take a trip for each anniversary for 6 years. We took a few years off to have some children, and we've been blessed to go in 2015 with our two oldest, when she was pregnant with her third, she might add, and then again in 2017 when she was pregnant with her fourth. And each and every time was more magical. And now that we have littles, it's even more so, if that's possible. You know what? Okay. Speaking of going back for anniversaries, my wife posted something I think it was yesterday, about how 10 years ago, she and I were finally we celebrated our 10-year anniversary 11 and a half years into our marriage, which is just weird.
What's that? You celebrated your 10th anniversary 11 and a half years later. Okay.
We were supposed to go. We were supposed to go in 2007 to celebrate our 10th anniversary, and it just didn't happen. So we went the first time we went just as a couple was 2008. And it was for a fan gathering called Mouse Fest, that was the last year they did Mouse Fest, which is a shame. But so she posted a memory from back then about how she was so excited to go. And it wasn't until a couple years ago that we were finally able to do it for our 20th anniversary. And the cool part about that was it was actually within the year that we were celebrating 20 years of marriage. And we went back last year for our 21st. And I do believe that we are on track to try to celebrate 22 years sometime in 2019 at Walt Disney World as well.
Nice.
So it's kind of cool. And, one of these days, I'm going to have to rib Uncle Danny there for a minute because, I see him getting married at Walt Disney World. I see him celebrating many happy anniversaries at Walt Disney World. I see me officiating his wedding at Walt Disney World. Which
that has been discussed.
That would have to be a live event, I think. We wouldn't want to miss that.
Justin Nix was a live event. It was hilarious. We had a whole bunch of our listeners join virtually. It was really cool. And it just kind of also just with something like that. The funny part is, and I know Kimberly, you and I were talking a little bit before the show, Disney isn't just about going to the parks. There is a real community involved. And Danny and I have always talked about how we have made some really good friends in the Disney community through the things that we do. And it's not just us. We're only part of it. We're only the faces of the show, but it's this community that makes all the difference in the world. We're glad that we've gotten to meet a lot of these people. We're glad that we've gotten to become really, real close friends with some of these people. And there are still people that we're still learning who they are and getting to know them a little bit. This is the kind of day and age where, let's face it, your friendships and your community is not just what's right outside your front door. It's what's in front of the big screen in front of you.
Right.
So, I mean, Danny and I would have never met if it wasn't for something like this. And, you know, it's just, yeah.
How did you guys meet? Can I know how you met? Can you refresh your audience?
Go for it, buddy.
So I started this show. All right, so we'll make a very long story as short as possible. I started a podcast. It was not this podcast. I hated everything I was doing about it, so I scrapped it. No one could find it. And if you want to know the name, you have to go back to numerous episodes ago. So then I started the Behind the Ears podcast. I was about a month in, and I realized, hey, this is somewhat boring to talk to a screen by myself. Because when I was started, it wasn't live. I just would record and I would put it as a podcast. So I was literally sitting there for a half hour like this, just talking to a mic to myself. And I was like, okay, if this is ever going to take off to something, I need to find somebody. So I started reaching out to some of the larger Disney groups, and Chris knows this. I was reaching out. I wanted to find a woman, someone who can be completely different from me on so many different aspects, and we can go back and forth. Well, I ended up finding Chris. No, I actually interviewed quite a few people. And, you know, everybody's interview I did on the phone, you know, about 10, 15 minutes long. Me and Chris get on the phone, and next thing I know, we look down at our clock. We've been talking for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And we just kind of knew right then and there, like, all right, you know, this is going to be a good fit. And the company was just a little podcast at the time. So we ever said, hey, you know, why don't you come on? We'll try it out. And after a few weeks, I said, if we can ever turn this podcast into something, you know, I would love to split it 50-50. And that's exactly what we agreed on. And a year later, Chris brought up the idea of live streaming. And it turned into us going out and getting an LLC and creating a legitimate Indiana-based company. And it's been an absolute blast.
Nice.
It is. And to be very, very honest, with Danny being gone for the past few weeks, we knew this was going to happen. I mean, the fact of the matter is that, you know, Danny and I talk with each other a lot off the air, as much as, you know, I mean, off the air, probably almost as much as we do on the air. And the fact of the matter is that, you know, we've become very close, you know, over this whole endeavor. And the fact of the matter is it's the same with many of the members of our community. Yeah. And, you know, the fact of the matter is, you know, we've built up these friendships. And, you know, the thing is we try to all support one another, not just with Disney planning and stuff like that, but life. And, you know, I guess you can say that, I guess we're inspired. And I say we as in just a whole community, but Danny and I as well, and people such as yourself who are inspired to really honestly, really make things better for people. And whether or not whether it's something as simple as, you know, trying to raise money for a great organization like Give Kids the World or the American Cancer Society or any organization that is going to help people. You know, the fact of the matter is that this world needs more of that. We now need to hear more of the stories that are happy, are good. In fact, I'm scrolling through a lot of them in the comment section right now, and you know there are so many great stories. I'm actually having a hard time trying to figure out which one to click next. But you know the interesting thing is that let's see, I'm going to flip through here. I'm just going to go through some of these really quick. Gordon is saying, hey, one of my best memories just happened, and I was taking both my kids on Space Mountain for the first time. Gordon, let me tell you something. I remember going on Space Mountain for the first time with my dad. I remember it scaring the crap out of me. And I remembered wanting to do it again. You know, I find that to be kind of funny. Hold on, I got to change something here. There we go. That's better. Let's see. Chris, our friend Chris, our man on the street, Chris Hiller. Purchasing my first annual pass was probably the greatest memory in recent years. I thought that was kind of cool. Leanna basically said, my high school choir got to perform at Walt Disney World, and it was on her 16th birthday.
Oh, wow.
That's really cool.
Great.
Kim basically mentions, my favorite memory is surprising my granddaughter for a 5th birthday celebration with 2 grandmas and her mom going, then coming back and leaving 2 days later for a girls' Disney vacation with my friends from grade school.
Wow.
And then she also throws out there, love being a DVC member and annual pass holder.
Yeah.
So that's pretty epic. And I want to go ahead and share this because it deals with Disneyland from Joe. He says, my favorite memory was actually at Disneyland. I had just completed a solo. Oh, I read the story. Right. You got to hear this. This is epic. He just completed a solo cross-country bike ride from the Jersey Shore to Santa Monica.
Wow.
And he proposed to his girlfriend right before he finished the ride. A few days later, we had a character breakfast at Paradise Pier, and he stuffed his face with so many Mickey waffles to make up for lost time.
And calories.
Oh, serious. He goes, then we went to the park, and it was a great memory for me because we were newly engaged, and it was our first trip to a Disney park together. It was also a great way to end and get this, ladies and gentlemen, 48-day, 3,001 mile journey. And since then, they've been several times, and they've also become annual pass holders to Disney World. Joe, you win.
Yeah, you win. You win the game.
Okay, I'll admit.
I've done my for you.
Oh, Joe, do me a favor. If you're listening to this, please reach out to me. Send us an email over at behindearspodcast@gmail.com. I am going to send you something. It's as simple as that. I have to do that. So if you hear, I'll try to reach out to you as well if you're not watching live, but that deserves something. That is an epic story. Man, that's almost a Forrest Gump level of dedication, referring to when he was running back and forth type of thing. Holy cow. So yeah, that's just really pretty awesome. And we've gotten a lot of other comments here. I'm going to try to scroll through it a little bit here. Let's see. Chris also basically says, I enjoy meeting people from here at Disney during their trips. So many great people come from here, from their online community, referring to our online community, the WDW community page. Hey, Alex. Hello.
Random.
Alex, I'm just glad you're here. So the interesting part is that, okay. Gabrielle is calling us out, Danny. She's calling it a true bromance. I don't know about that. So it's
really don't like him. I have to add a little negativity to the show once in a while, people.
And he's the reason why we have to have a limit on our expense account.
I didn't get the company credit card. Let's be real. Let's throw it all on the table now.
And there's a reason for it too. No, just kidding. Seriously, I don't think I would do this long term with anybody else. I'll be really super honest. I love being guests on other shows. Which I'm just going to go ahead and throw this out. I'm going to give a shout out to the show called My DVC Points. And I actually got interviewed by Chad, their host, or that host over there, talking all about DVC stuff. We're going to have him on the show probably within the next couple of weeks, talk a little bit more about just DVC member stories and stuff like that. Had a fabulous time, but I still wouldn't give it up. I still wouldn't give up hanging out with Danny. By the way, so Chris also says, I wouldn't ride a bike to Disney, and that's only 7 miles from my house.
Ain't that the truth?
Come on, Chris. So, but Danny, what would you say one of your most favorite memories of recent are? And you've took a lot of trips over the past few years. Some before we met, some after we met. What were some of your give me an example of one of your favorite Disney memories? I think it's the one where you did the Princess Marathon.
You know what? It truly was. I was at a family get together over the weekend, and someone, I found out actually it was like a party of like 50 of us, that a large majority of my family listens to us. So that was a little bit of a shock. Shout out to them. Thank you. But being able to participate in something like that, it was bittersweet. It was an amazing experience meeting all the racers. Disney was very interested in interviewing me because of my outfit, and it was just too early in the morning for anything like that. I had an absolute blast. I actually have a medal somewhere from Disney, which was really cool. I also learned something valuable. 2 valuable lessons. I don't like the morning, and you will never see me in a tutu running a race again. No, but I met some really amazing people. I was able to interact with some people, and the one of the nicest things is just because we only have 30 viewers live right now, where we only have 3,000 people download an episode, you don't realize the reach that this show has. And it's not to tote my horn or pat Chris on the back, but it is nice, especially just having that name recognition walking by, and people might listen to you or have heard of you, but they don't know exactly who you are. But the minute they see that logo, they're like, oh, I've heard of them. It's just being able to take an idea that I had almost 3.5 years ago and turn it into where cast members are recognizing that logo. We're doing something right. And that was probably one of the coolest memories. Even the following day, me, Jessica, and Nick were on the monorail, and we all had our Behind the Ears podcast stuff on, and I saw this guy kind of like side-eyeing me. Now, I'm from New Jersey, so you start side-eyeing me, I think you're either going to rob me or you want to have an argument with me. I'm on the monorail at Disney, so I know that neither of those things is more than likely not happening. And it was just that knowing, like, when someone thinks they recognize you, but they don't want to say anything. So I politely just went up to him and said, hello. And we got chatting. And I've not only been able to help grow our brand, or even expose us to people who have never heard of podcasts. I've been able to meet such an amazing variety of people that normally maybe wouldn't have given me the time of day, or maybe didn't want to dive into it. There's plenty of people that listen to us or are in a community and they interact with us. And, you do eventually make them feel like family. Like Chris said before, without this show, Chris or myself never would have met. Mm-hmm. Without this show, Chris and myself never would have officiated a wedding in a state I've never been to, with people I've only known for over 1.5 years. It's just an amazing, I know I was supposed to stay on one trip, but the whole last year was a real eye opener. Was, really being in the parks for as much as I was, and really learning outside of Disney, but the salt of the earth people that we have in this community that will literally give up the time of day, the last $5 in their wallet to donate to our cause, or their hard-earned money to buy a T-shirt that has our logo on it. I mean, it sounds silly, but people might view us as like, oh, it's 9:45, our favorite TV show is on. Let me open up my phone. But we also view it as, oh, look, Alex is talking. Oh, Gordon, like the other day, Gordon's in Disney. Hey, Gordon, how's Disney? Or, I'll wake up to someone's like, hey, I was in Disney, saw Buzz Lightyear, thought of you. And it's just, even though we might not have never met in person and we might not know each other's history, we take all political beliefs, all race, all gender, and anything doesn't matter. We're all just in this because we love Disney, and we've learned to mutually respect each other, and that's the biggest thing I think I've gotten out of all this.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I mean, the fact of the matter is that I think if there's anything that we can say about positivity and just being positive about life, you know what? There are people in our community that go through a lot of crap. And to be honest with you, we try to do what we can to encourage them with words of encouragement, private messages on the side. We try to do what we can. And, the thing is I think that, my phrase is aspire to inspire, which, by the way, I kind of came up with that after I met Marty Sklar at a book signing. Mm-hmm. And the fact of the matter is that my my conversation with him, along with his conversation with him and my son's conversation, really kind of made it a point that no matter what you do, try to make somebody else a better person. Try to make someone else a little happier. Try to make someone else, realize that they are completely worth it. And, it just makes a lot of sense. So,
I was going to tell you that I met the inspiration behind Princess Tiana, Leah Chase. She's 90 some years old. She's known as the Queen of Creole in New Orleans. And I spent an hour with her in her kitchen. And, she was just such a lovely human being, still up at 7 a.m. Danny, not your kind of morning person, but, she was still up there, still managing the kitchen, And she said her last words to my sons and I, she said, what? She goes, go out and make a difference. She goes, that's what it's all about. And my thing is I want to touch people's hearts through my stories, my podcast, my speaking, and make a difference in their lives. It's very simple. And, you don't have to do a lot to do that, to make a difference, I
can agree. Kimberly, we're coming to the top of our hour, so to speak. And I was, as I said, I've read your book. I want to make sure other people know about where they can find your writings. Why don't you take a minute here to kind of let people know where they can find you on social media channels, as well as where can they find your publications?
Sure. Well, I'm really excited, Chris, because this just went live. This is the 4th book, the Positively Disney book. And I've got the original Tinkerbell, the 4th voice of Mickey. I've got enemies, Imagineers, guests, all kinds of wonderful folks in there. You can get it on Amazon. You can order through any bookstore. If you want to support your small bookstores on the side, which I'm really a big fan of as well. You can find me on Facebook for Positively Disney Book, or you can find me, Kimberley Bouchard. I'm also on there in my Disney profile, and positivelydisney.com. And if anybody wants to share anything with me, they can just email me or message me, Kimberly with an L-E-Y at positivelydisney.com. And I always respond to folks. I always want people to know that I will always be there as a person to communicate with and to reach out and engage with. So that's who I am.
That's really cool. And by the way, I have to say, I love your decor in your
Yes.
Stuff.
I know it seems like I haven't been looking at the screen. It's because I'm staring at my other monitor and I'm like, oh, look at that. That's really neat over there.
Oh, gosh. And they all have a story. All these things have a story like behind them, really. And, I just want to tell you that poster of the ugliest dash out. I don't know if you guys ever saw that years ago, but it's one of my favorite with Suzanne Plachette and Dean Jones. And that's an original poster from the movies like that.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. My husband finds all these great things. And then I've had different artists do things like the one with Donald Duck, who's my guy, on the beach holding my book. I got that. Kevin John was commissioned to do that as a Christmas gift for me. And so it was just, the waterworks were happening that day, I'll tell you, when I was presented with it. But yeah, so anyways. Thank you so much, you guys. Gosh, it's just been such a pleasure because I do see you from afar. And of course, I have my nose to the grindstone getting the 4th book. The 5th book will be out next year, the Star Wars edition. I'm interviewing for that already. I even actually interviewed starting for the 6th book. It's a kind of crazy business, but just really enjoy listening to you guys when I can.
Oh, we appreciate you.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for your time. We're going to go ahead and put you back in our green room. Why don't you hang out for one more second?
Sounds good.
Thank you. All right, Danny, if nothing else, I'm really glad that you were able to be here tonight because I know that, you're going through a lot of probably the biggest stressful time of the month, of the season for you. I hope, if nothing else, puts a little bit of a smile on your face.
Yeah, it is tough. Don't think that I enjoy, this is not directed at you, more directed at our listeners. Don't think I enjoy staying away. Was it nice the first Tuesday when I was really tired to sleep? Yeah, it was fantastic. But it's not fun. You work really hard at something and it's not fair to Chris and it is tough. So, please be patient with him, like always. Enjoy his guests. He's got a lot of guests lined up. I'm going to say more than likely this is the last week where you might see me on Thursday. I'm not sure yet, but this is probably going to be my last week until January. But you never know. You might be able to stick a show in here and there. But with that being said, Chris, why don't you take us away?
You got it. You heard the show, and we hope you want more. Well, feel free to join us over at our social media platforms. Instagram and our Facebook page can be found at Behind the Ears Podcast. Our webpage is behindtheearspodcast.net, and our email is behindtheearspodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @BehindTheEarsPC. And come and join the conversation about all things Disney over at the WDW community page. Don't forget to rate and review the show over at iTunes or Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us get the word out about the show. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or the Podbean app. Also, you can listen to us on Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and via Alexa and Google Home.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on another live recording of Behind the Ears Podcast. I am Uncle Danny. That was Mr. Chris. We want to thank you all for participating, for watching, for being a part of not only the Behind the Ears Podcast, but also the WDW community. Don't forget, like Chris says, follow us on our other social media platforms. Now, depending on when this releases, maybe you don't even realize, but for our live viewers, like I was saying a few minutes ago, this might be the last time I get to see or talk to most of you prior to the holiday season. So happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Everybody, please be safe. Kids, remember, Santa's always watching. For your parents, just remember, Santa's still always delivering. Be nice to people. With that being said, everybody, if I don't see you, I hope you have a wonderful, safe, and enjoyable, relaxing holiday season. I am Uncle Danny. Until next time, I'll see you.
And I'm Mr. Chris. Thanks a lot, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for being tolerant of some of our still technical issues that we're going through. But that's okay, because for every show that we do, we get just a little bit better. So, hey, we're really glad that you're able to join us. And by all means, we can't wait to talk to you again. But until we meet again, we hope that you have an absolutely magical day. Take care.